get started. All right. Well, my name is Jennifer Rivas. I am just helping to host and organize this event today, but I am so thrilled to introduce you to Dr. Hevi. He currently lives in Arizona with his wife and 2 boys. He has a special passion for weight loss medicine, having struggled with his own weight in the past, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about his story. But Dr. Hevi has been helping people lose weight and get to the root of their symptoms since 2001, but he made it official in 2012 when he was certified by the American Board of Obesity Medicine. He credits the success of his program to his ability to identify the underlying cause of the illness and or weight gain and come up with a comprehensive solution, which he is going to share with us today. He's well versed in combining both non-conventional alternative remedies with conventional medicine, and he helps his patients achieve optimal health. So without further ado, I want to introduce everyone to Dr. Hevi, and Dr. Hevi, I will let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Jen. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be with all of you attendees. I probably know most of you because a lot of you are patients of mine, but certainly thank you very much for taking the time off to be with us today. So the title for today's presentation is How to Feel Your Best and Shed the Weight. The approach you haven't tried that gets results. Those who know me, you know that I'm a huge advocate and a huge fan of the gut and the gut microbiome and working towards health by healing the gut. So that will be a big part of this presentation today. So let's get started. As Jen said, that's me right there. I'm a double board certified internal medicine and obesity medicine. The objectives of today's talk are going to be to discuss the basic principles of the gut microbiome, discuss the importance of gut health to general health, talk about some cutting edge testing that takes out the guesswork, and then talk about how to utilize that testing to improve health faster and efficiently. I have a quick disclaimer. Nothing in this presentation should be taken as direct medical advice to cure, treat, or diagnose any disease. It's always very important to consult with your own physician before you make any drastic changes to your medications or health regimen. So, well, we'll start with who will or may not benefit from this talk. Of course, anyone who is perfectly happy with the way they feel and look probably will not gain too much, but anyone who is also maybe not at the point in time where they feel they need to make any changes may also not benefit. But definitely someone who will benefit is an individual who is not okay with the way they currently feel or look and who is ready to make some changes that will impact their health and quality of life. So do any of these sound like you? Any of these diagnoses or symptoms or signs sound like you? And the list can go on and on. There's more to come, intestinal permeability, infections, overweight, obesity. Now, I myself suffered with many of the above symptoms and conditions for many, many years. And that kind of brought me to the path that I'm on right now. But it's really the testing that we'll be discussing today that got me to be able to heal myself and remain healed. And that's the reason why I found it very necessary to do this webinar, just because, I mean, if I had the chance, I would, shout over the rooftops about some of these tests just because of the impact that they have had on my personal quality of life. So this is one of my favorite quotes. All disease begins in the gut. And this is from no other than Hippocrates, who's credited as being the father of modern medicine. Now it's crazy that, this was known 2,500 years ago. And in a sense, we are now only rediscovering this in a modern medicine. Another popular quote of his that I like is, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." Let's talk about the gut. So, the gut is the passageway of the digestive system from the mouth down to the anus. It is technically a continuation of our external skin, but on the inside. So, the gut is technically still outside of our bodies. But it has some challenges that it faces. Number one, it's only lined by one cell layer. And that makes it very vulnerable to attack by pathogens or toxins or anything that can potentially inflame it. The gut is huge. I mean, it's estimated that if you were to lay out the entire gut, it would cover the surface of a tennis court. Um, Unfortunately, we unknowingly a lot of times dump a lot of toxic foods and substances into our guts. Now let's talk about the gut microbiome, and this is one of my favorite areas of research that I love to talk about because it's fascinating. And honestly, we are only at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to our knowledge about the gut microbiome. But it's a complex ecosystem made up of bacteria, fungi or yeast, viruses, and parasites that exist inside our guts. And these microbes actually outnumber our human cells by 10 to 1. So, in a sense, you could even say that we are just a bunch of microbes with a human shell walking around, right? And it gets even crazier when you talk about genetic material because genetic material, they actually outnumber our human cells by 100 to 1. And as I was saying, they are crucial to our function, health, and survival. And here are some of the functions of the gut microbiome. Now, they help with digestion of our food. Once the food is digested, they help us to absorb the nutrients that are gleaned from the food. And they themselves actually produce some of the nutrients that we need. And if you don't have some of those microorganisms, you could get very deficient in certain vitamins or minerals. They help with metabolism, and we'll be talking about a study that showed that. They help with weight regulation and hunger. About 80% of our immune system is actually located in the gut and is regulated by the gut bacteria. They also help with neurotransmitter production. It's estimated that about 80% of the serotonin and dopamine that's produced in the body, and those are the feel-good hormones, that 80% is produced in the gut by these gut bacteria. They also help with gene expression. So there are certain bacteria that produce chemicals that can actually activate or shut off genes. So you could have bad bacteria that are switching on genes for certain cancers, for instance. And you could have good bacteria that produce chemicals that deactivate genes for cancer or any other type of illness that's out there. Another fascinating thing that they do is they are able to communicate with each other and communicate with our brains through um, chemicals that they produce, through the nervous system, and even through what you could describe as text messages that they send back and forth. An example is yeast can actually send messages to the brain, hijacking human behavior and making us crave carbohydrates because they love carbohydrates. Another example of this kind of hijacking in the animal kingdom is there's a parasite called toxoplasma, which the final host is cats. And the way it gets to the cats is it hijacks the brains of mice and removes the fear of cats from the mice. So instead of a mouse seeing a cat and running away, the mouse goes up to the cat and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Tom, my name's Jerry. How are you doing today?" And you know how that ends. But by doing that, the parasite, the toxoplasma, is able to get into the end host, which is the cat. It's fascinating. Um, it's been found that for every signal or single signal that goes from the brain to the gut, there are actually 10 that go from the gut to the brain. So sometimes I wonder, is it this brain that's controlling the body, or is it the brain in the gut that's in control? Now, this is a fascinating study done in our backyard. Those of you who live in Arizona, this is Arizona State University, where they found that autistic children tend to have a very characteristic blend of bacteria in their guts. And what they did is they actually transplanted stool from non-autistic kids into the guts of the autistic kids, and the autistic symptoms improved. And this was significant improvement. It was crazy. And they found that even after 2 years, the change in the composition of the gut microbiome that resulted from the fecal transplant and the symptoms remained stable and in the improved state. It's fascinating. This is another study that was done into the gut microbiome and obesity, where there are a lot of, there are dozens of studies like this. If you pull it up or you Google them, and as I said, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. But this one, for instance, they looked at mice, and they looked at obese mice versus skinny mice. And what they did was they found that if you transplanted stool from obese mice who had a certain mix of bacteria into skinny mice, the skinny mice would gain weight and become obese without changing the number of calories or physical activity. And vice versa. If you took stool from a skinny mouse and put it in a traditionally obese mouse, the obese mouse would lose weight without changing the number of calories or its physical activity level. That is crazy. This is this is another obesity study. I don't know where it was done, but I am sure a lot of people will attest to that. So, what are some of the factors that can alter the gut flora? Antibiotics or antibiotics that are in the meat of animals that we eat. Any food that has been altered genetically could potentially affect it. High carbohydrate, high sugar diets, having low stomach acid, stress, artificial sweeteners, processed foods and fast foods, and environmental toxins. In order to achieve optimal health, we have to restore balance in the gut. There is a need to decrease the number of bad bacteria, increase the number of good bacteria, eradicate any potentially harmful yeast, parasites, and viruses. There's also a need to improve our general digestion and reduce inflammation in the body. Now, I'll touch very briefly on allergies and food sensitivities. Um, for the most part, allergies, food sensitivities, autoimmune diseases have a foundation in the gut. If there's any source of inflammation to the gut, remember it only has one cell layer of lining in the gut. And that can lead to a situation known as a leaky gut, where organisms, bacteria, undigested food is able to cross into the bloodstream. And because it's not supposed to be there, it elicits an immune response from the body. Now, if this goes on for a long period of time, the immune system just becomes overactive or hyperactive or hypersensitive and starts firing off with very little provocation. Now, combined with certain genetic predispositions and the fact that there's some mimicry between proteins on bacteria and proteins on our human cells, what that can develop into is a situation where the body or the immune cells are unable to distinguish between self and foreign invader. And then they start attacking tissues in the body itself. And generally, the part of the body that gets attacked determines the type of autoimmune disease, for instance. So, like if it's the thyroid that's attacked, that's Hashimoto's. If it's the joints, that's rheumatoid arthritis. If it's the pancreas, that's type 1 diabetes. If it's the skin, that's lupus. Um, if it's the gut, that can be Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, and so on and so forth. There are, I believe, over 50 different autoimmune diseases that are out there. Now, because the root cause of many of these diseases lies in the gut, fixing the gut is probably the most effective way to manage these diseases. And so we're going to talk about two tools that I have found are very, very useful for diagnosing gut issues. One is the Vibrant Labs Gut Zoomer 3.0 test. Another is the Vibrant Labs Food Sensitivity test. Now, one may ask, why Vibrant Labs? As you, my patients know, I do a lot of research before I recommend anything to you because I want the best for you guys. And in my opinion, after research, Vibrant has very accurate, cutting edge, technologically advanced testing. They provide tons of information and explanation in the reports that they provide. And they are backed by a solid team of clinical and medical practitioners that span many disciplines in medicine. Let's start off with a case, okay? So in order to protect the privacy of this patient, we'll call her Mary. She's a 60-year-old female who came to me with a 10-year history of alternating diarrhea and constipation. She had developed over the previous few months rapidly progressing severe abdominal pain. She had also developed rapidly worsening severe anxiety and depression. She could barely leave the house anymore and didn't want to get out of bed even. She had very severe fatigue. She had osteoporosis from poor absorption of nutrients. She was gaining weight even though she was barely eating anything. She had seen numerous specialists. She saw a gastroenterologist for her stomach issues. She saw a rheumatologist for her fatigue and osteoporosis. She saw a psychologist for her anxiety. She saw a neurologist for her brain fog. And it was just prescription after prescription with no resolution of symptoms. She noted that she had a history of multiple infections and antibiotic use in her past. She ate predominantly fast foods and processed foods, and she had been under an extreme amount of stress at home and work. But at the point she was seeing me, she was not even able to work anymore because of her anxiety. So we obtained a gut zoomer and food sensitivity test on her. We'll delve more into the gut zoomer test, the nuances later, but for now, we can say that her test results showed she had very low bacterial diversity. Her Firmicutes to Bacteroides ratio was low, which meant that she was predisposed to gaining weight and becoming obese. The type of bacteria she had indicated she had intestinal permeability. She was malnourished. She had a decline in liver function and detox ability. She also had elevated inflammatory markers. She had undigested vegetable fiber, meaning she was not digesting food appropriately. And she also had a preponderance of bacteria that are associated with an increased risk of Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, and Parkinson's disease. They showed their lower production of B12, folic acid, and other vitamins. And at least fortunately, she did not have any pathogenic parasites, fungi, or viruses. So this is a summary, a snapshot of what comes in the food sensitivity test. Those in anything in red shows a severe sensitivity to the foods that are indicated there. And this was a real eye opener for her because she thought she was eating some things that were rather healthy for her, like asparagus was listed as one of the severe allergies, radish, zucchini, tuna, sole, pistachio nuts, beets, kale, just to name a few. And these are, mind you, listed under the severe allergy list. Those in yellow are the moderate severe sensitivities, and I hope it's big enough for you to be able to see some of the foods that are listed there. And for because of time restraints, we won't go into or read all of them out. But she was started on a regimen of dietary modification and supplements based on the above tests. And after just 6 months, she had regularized her bowel movements, her abdominal pain was 100% gone, anxiety and depression was 100% gone with no medications. She was cheerful, full of energy. She had lost over 30 pounds and counting. Now let's delve a little more into the Gut Zoomer 3.0. And this is a sample report sheet. And mind you, the full report is 30 pages long, but because of time, we'll just go to some of the pertinent ones. If you see on the top left, it says gut diversity. That tells you the number or the diversity of the bacteria in the gut, the number of some of the particular phyla or group of the bacteria. It talks about certain key ratios. I talked about the F to B ratio, which shows a predisposition to obesity. It also calculates a P to B ratio, which shows whether someone would do better on a high fiber or a vegetarian style diet versus a different kind of diet. So if there's anyone out there who's maybe considering going vegetarian, this would be a good test to show that you do have the apparatus, you do have the type of gut microbes in your gut that would be able to handle and be able to break down the nutrients found in plant material and utilize that for your health. The red, gold, green boxes or bars that are there also talk about certain blends of bacteria that may predispose people to certain chronic illnesses. If you can read what's there, this particular sample showed that there was a moderately elevated predisposition to metabolic issues, neurologic issues, autoimmune issues, malnutrition, liver problems, etc. Up over here, where the cursor is, you can see gut pathogens. So those are bacteria that have the potential to cause disease in the body. Over here are some markers of inflammation that can be found. Moving on, we have some markers of digestive insufficiency. So if the individual is not digesting fat or not digesting protein or not digesting fiber well, that will be detected there. And there are ways of mitigating that. There are other gut metabolites on this side. Short chain fatty acids are very important to gut health and colon health in general. Having good levels protects against colon cancer. And then other general markers of, leaky gut, some markers of celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. And then on this side, it lists the bacteria that were identified. And this test identifies tons of bacteria. Well, we'll skip over all of them because of time. This is a list of parasites, of different classes. You have protozoans, you have worms. This is a list of viruses, and it tells if they are pathogenic or if they are helpful, and a list of fungi or yeast. It even lists antibiotic-resistant genes that are found in some of the microorganisms. So this one, for instance, Helicobacter pylori or H. pylori, in this test showed a resistance to clarithromycin, which is one of the antibiotics that's typically used. And so you can use this as a tool in management. Little comic relief. And now let's talk about case number 2. So this is a 46-year-old male who was obese since childhood. Well, actually, he was obese since childhood and struggled with weight. Had multiple infections in high school and college, recurrent malaria, recurrent tonsillitis, recurrent stomach infections. He had multiple rounds of antibiotics due to the infections. He developed acid reflux and very severe indigestion. In fact, it was so bad that sometimes he would eat something, and after 2 days, that food would still be in his stomach. It wouldn't have passed out of the stomach. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden, he started to react to many foods that he had eaten his whole life. He was also subsequently diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. Now, can any of you guess who this individual is? Any guesses? Oh, there he is. I tried many different types of diets, including elimination diets. I tried many different supplements, probiotics, anti-inflammatories, prescription medications, so many different modalities. But, well, and let me just go briefly over elimination diet. So an elimination diet tries to remove foods that are most likely to cause irritation or inflammation, and then you assess for improvement in symptoms, and then try and reintroduce those foods one by one and look out to see if there's a resumption of those symptoms. And you can kind of try and eliminate some foods that way. I was able to eliminate a few by doing this, but I did not still feel up to par. And then I discovered the gut zoomer and food sensitivity test. This is a copy of my personal food sensitivity test. I've highlighted in yellow the foods that I was sensitive to, and as you can see, it was a lot. And these are things that I had no clue were inflaming me and causing all those problems and those symptoms. I mean, a lot of the things in there, as with the previous person, I was eating and thinking I was promoting my health. I mean, turmeric, I was pounding down turmeric because I know of its anti-inflammatory properties, not knowing turmeric was one of my severe sensitivities. This is just, continuing on my food sensitivity results. So more yellow, a lot of fruits, vegetables in there that I was trying to sacrifice and eat, thinking I was promoting or improving my health, and even more yellow. So on the top left, these are food additives. So things like dyes that are found in food, preservatives, bisphenol A, which is in plastics, was one of my severe sensitivities. Looks at monosodium glutamate, MSG, and a host. I mean, look at the number of things that they test for. And this page on this side tells you about, is like a summary of, on the left are the things that you're sensitive to. On the right, over here under the green, are the foods that you can safely eat without any reaction whatsoever. And the top left is just a continuation of the previous list we talked about. They also have the food sensitivities in graphical form. And you can see that on the right side of your screen. Now, mind you, this report, this particular report is over 92, I believe 92 pages long. Of course, we're just picking snippets of it to show you. So another portion of the report shows up like this, and what it does is they take every single substance that you are sensitive to and they break it down for you and describe it. So casomorphin, for instance, under the food description, it's a peptide that's found in the gut from milk proteins, digestion of milk proteins. And it gives you a list here of foods that is commonly found in, or substances it's commonly found in, gives you a list of hidden sources of those allergens, and then also precautions, things that you should be looking out for. Now, I don't think I included that in the presentation, but the report also gives you a rundown of recommendations when it comes to like different supplements or antimicrobials that may be useful. And so that would help your clinician or physician to determine, which would be me, to determine what type of regimen would work best. And we use that as a guide. There are other things based on my own personal experience that I've found also are very useful. So one of the most common questions I get asked is, do you have to avoid the foods you're sensitive to for the rest of your life? And the short answer is no. What they have found is that after about 6 months, in some cases 3 months, but I find I try to push it to be sure. After about 6 months, they found that the body is able to clear out a lot of the antibodies that were produced against those foods, provided the individual avoids that food for that period of time. Now, does that happen for 100% of the foods? No, but a large chunk. For instance, have been able to resume eating a lot of the foods I was sensitive to. Thank God, chocolate is one of them. But things like citrus, I tried hard. I've not been able to get back to eating citrus. Honey, I'm still very sensitive to honey, but it's good to know. Now, my gut Zoomer test showed I also had very low bacterial diversity. My F2B ratio was low, which showed that I had a predisposition to obesity. The bacteria present indicate a higher risk for intestinal malabsorption and inflammation and SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and some neurologic dysfunction. I also had elevated inflammatory markers. I had undigested meat fiber, which showed that I wasn't digesting meat properly, and therefore I wasn't benefiting from the amino acids that were in the meat. Thankfully, though, they did not find any pathogenic parasites, fungi, or viruses. All right, so I was also started on a regimen of dietary modification and natural supplements myself based on the above tests. And in the present day, I have achieved complete reversal of my Hashimoto's with dietary changes and supplements alone, no medications. I have zero abdominal pain, reflux, or indigestion, except for the odd time where maybe I eat something that I didn't know contained one of the things I'm sensitive to. I have been able to lose weight and have kept it off now for 10 years now, knock on wood. I have honestly more energy and more mental clarity now than I did 20 years ago. So currently I would say that there are two options. That one option is to keep trying to figure it out, kind of, just feeling in the dark with elimination diets, seeing doctors, trying different supplements, or use proven expertise and technology to come up with a plan that gets you very fast, very effective, and very safe results. I would say that if you have any of the conditions or symptoms that we mentioned above, I would highly recommend these tests for you. And I would say that anyone with autoimmune disease, it is absolutely crucial that you do these tests, because the basic fundamental underlying cause of autoimmune disease is in the gut. Um, I, I have taken so many patients off of their prescription medications who had autoimmune disease just by fixing their guts. Um, these tests have truly changed my life and improved the quality of my life. I recognize the fact that cost may be a barrier for some people. I would recommend starting to save towards it if possible, even if it takes a year, 2 years. Honestly, it is still worth it, and you are worth it. And I have so many patients who put off their own health because they're taking care of a family member or taking care of the kids. But remember, anytime you go to fly on a plane, the stewardesses tell you that if there's a loss of oxygen and those oxygen masks come down, you make sure that you put yours on first before you turn and help kids or anyone who needs assistance, because you have to be alive in order to help other people. So the question, how to order these tests? So I think Jen, at the end of this, will be talking about how to get it at the end of the webinar. But otherwise, you can go to our website, the Zenith Health website. We have been amazingly able to integrate with the company, the online store of the company. So you just click on shop, you register your email, and place your order. And test kits can be shipped anywhere in the US, even worldwide. And so, I sometimes do online consultations with people from around the globe. So any of you that are listening can also order this. Just send us an email and let us know where in the world you are, and we can get back to you and let you know the best way of ordering it and getting it out to you. Once the results come back, they will come to me. I will review them, interpret them, make my own recommendations as it pertains to diet and supplements, and then those recommendations will be sent to you. Face-to-face discussions can be arranged if you want via an office appointment, and people outside of Arizona or internationally can place an order for an online consultation in the same online store. So I believe it's time to take back your health with the power of the spoon, with this power of food. As Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Thank you very much for listening. I would like to now open things up for a question and answer session, which is important. Thank you.
So much. You are literally a walking testimonial of these tests and what it's done for you. I actually had no idea of your backstory, so that was amazing. And thank you too for touching on just the investment in your health. Dr. Hevi has been gracious enough, I know he didn't mention it, but he is offering a 20% discount on these tests. We've got a ton of questions coming in, Dr. Hevi, so I'm just going to jump right into it. And I am also going to put up on here the button. If you are interested in these tests, feel free to click this button right at the top. It will open a new tab, so you'll still be hearing us. But I'm going to dive into some of these questions. First and foremost, and you actually answered quite a few of them while you were talking, Dr. Hevi, but someone was curious, how do you know if you have leaky gut?
All right, so that's a good question, because some people have it and have no clue. It could be completely asymptomatic, but for those who do have symptoms, some of the common symptoms are like the bloating, gassiness, abdominal pain, nausea, and it could be anything from the spectrum of constipation, even down to diarrhea. So it's very vague, non-specific symptoms. In some people, it manifests just as fatigue or brain fog. And so if you're lucky and you do have some of those symptoms, then it's warranted to um, get tested to see if you have it. Um, Otherwise, yeah, it is tough. It's interesting also. That brings up the talk about something like celiac disease. um, a lot of people have celiac disease or gluten sensitivity and are not aware of it. There's a work done by a doctor called Alessio Fasano, who's a Harvard Medical School gastroenterologist. He's one of the leading minds in gut health and leaky gut things. And he identified in one of his research studies that everybody, every single person has some degree of inflammation or reaction to gluten, no matter what, whether you have symptoms or not. And so that was some fascinating stuff that came out.
Great. Awesome. There's also quite a few questions, Dr. Heavy, regarding insurance. Do you want to speak to that?
Right. Yes. So unfortunately, this is not covered by insurance. I know a couple of patients did try to run it through their insurance, but it was rejected each time.
Okay, thank you. A few other people are asking about how long does it take to get the results back?
On average, I would say about 3 to 4 weeks, but usually about 3 weeks.
Great.
It just depends on when the samples get shipped out.
Okay. Let me keep scrolling down here. There's quite a few. This nice lady says, I've had allergies that I believe came about after gut issues. The allergies led to sinusitis issues for the last 10 plus years. Can these changes help with not only weight loss, but with other issues as well?
Oh yes, definitely. As I mentioned in the presentation, allergies, autoimmunity, a lot of the times they have a foundational basis in gut health and gut issues. And so if you are able to identify the dysfunction that's going on in your gut and heal it and restore proper balance, I've had a lot of patients whose allergy symptoms improved significantly. Some even, disappeared just by fixing the gut. Because remember, whilst your gut is out of balance or inflamed, that causes whole body inflammation, and your immune system is actively in high alert when that's going on. If you're able to heal the gut and you stop those bacteria and undigested food and foreign substances from crossing over and getting into your bloodstream, your immune system is naturally going to cool off on its own and problem solve.
We've had some other questions in regards to the test, if you recommend them to be done together. I do know that you offer both of them individually on your shop. However, like I said, you've been kind enough to bundle these and do a 20% discount. So I don't know if you wanted to speak any more to that, but that was a question.
All right. Well, ideally, it would be best to get both of them because they kind of complement each other, and getting the two of them together will give a very broad view and a very comprehensive view of what's really going on in the gut. Now, that's not to say you can't get one now and get another one later, that is a possibility, but the ideal situation would be to get the two of them together.
Great. We have individuals asking about how the test is actually performed. So we know it's shipped directly to their home. Do you want to speak to how the test is actually taken?
All right, so the food sensitivity test is a simple finger prick, just like how diabetics prick their fingers to check their blood glucose every day. And I mean, some people get amazed, how can they get all this information just from a few drops of blood? Well, that just speaks to how technologically advanced the equipment are that they use to do these tests. And so, yeah, you just get some blood. The instruction is self-explanatory. Put a few drops on there and ship it back to them. The Gut Zoomer 3.0 test, that requires a sample of stool. So there are instructions there that tell you exactly how to obtain that sample, how to seal it, and then you just ship it back to the lab.
Wonderful. A lot of interest in the discount, wanting to know how long that is being offered. Dr. Hevi has been kind enough to keep it open for a full week, so it will be available for the next 7 days. Someone had mentioned they didn't see the button. It should be a button in a red banner at the very top of your screen. However, no worries, when the webinar ends, you will receive an email that has a direct link to the 20% discount in Dr. Hevi's shop as well. And one thing I also did want to touch on, Dr. Hevi, is the recording. Just so everyone knows, this is being recorded. You will get a copy of the replay that will also be sent to your email. Let's see.
And I'd also like to add that if you know somebody or if you have any friends or relatives who suffer from any of these things, please, we want to spread the news as far and as wide as possible to get people, getting to the root cause of their disease and getting really good quality health and life out of this.
Absolutely. Some people were asking if they wanted to come into your office to actually purchase this. I guess you have some locals in Arizona that are tuning in. So I'll let you answer that.
Okay. Yeah, no, we do not have the test kits in the office. It's always shipped out from the lab to your home. So if you came here, we wouldn't be able to give you the test kit. We may be able to get some and have in stock, but I think it's probably easier if you just order it online in the convenience of your own home and have somebody bring it to you.
Agreed. And I did just put in the chat for everyone that is with us, if you are an international potential patient of Dr. Hevi's and you are interested in ordering these tests, there will be a form again after this webinar that you can fill out, but for any reason you're not seeing that, I just suggest that you copy and paste. That's both his email and the phone number to his office so that you can get a hold of them, like I said, in the event that you don't receive the email or you have other questions. So let's see, Dr. Hevi, we might have time for one more question.
Okay.
We have a question that says, I had a food sensitivity test done a few years ago. Do I need to do a new one again?
Well, it depends on how long ago, but the answer is probably yes. If you're still having problems and still having issues, and this kind of speaks to the reason why it's beneficial to do both of them at the same time, because one of them, the gut zoomer will, actually they both will help with inflammation and all that. But if you identify just the foods that you're sensitive to, but you are unable to heal your gut and heal the lining of your gut, then what's going to happen is you're going to continue to have substances crossing over and getting into your bloodstream and triggering your immune system. So you could potentially be avoiding all of the foods that are in your food sensitivity test, but then any new food that you're eating is also going to get into your bloodstream and start activating your immune system, and then you're back to square one. And so if that individual is still having symptoms, then yes, I would recommend that they repeat the test, and if possible, do both of them so that we can have a comprehensive look or deep dive into what's going on.
Fantastic. This one might just be a yes or no, so I'm going to ask you, just because it popped up twice, it might be worth answering. If you're on prednisone, can they take the test?
On prednisone, well, yeah, the gut zoomer certainly can be done, and well, yeah, I actually the food sensitivity, I never really thought of that.
Sometimes, Dr.
But,
Hevi, decrease the immune system, so it may blunt their results a little bit.
right. So yeah, I mean, it may suppress the immune response or the sensitivity of the test, but it once again there are nuances. It depends on the amount of prednisone that they're on, how long they've been on it. I would recommend, though, that if it's possible, maybe going off of any immune suppressing medication for, I would say, maybe about 4 or 5 days before doing the test, if that's possible.
Amazing. Well, I know there's more questions, but we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Dr. Hevi, thank you so much. This was so informative, and I know you are going to affect and change so many lives through this. So thank you again. It was a pleasure having you. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, everyone.